Hey everybody, Twin Dad here, and welcome back to Magium. I know it's been a long time, but not trying to make any excuses or anything, but I started a new job about a month and a half ago, and it's taken a little bit of time to adjust to it. It's in the end I end up getting more time off, but it's taken some time. Anyway, I'm hoping to get back in the swing of things, and I'm gonna start it off with Magium because I really enjoy reading it, and it's been far too long. Anyway, to get back to the story, I did start the next chapter, so it is right here. I can't believe that we managed to get ourselves in prison twice in 2 days, Hadric says, and by animals and ogres to boot. If word gets out, we're going to become the laughing stock of the tournament. It has now been close to 6 hours since we were teleported to our prison cell. I can tell because my stat device also shows me the hour of the day. In addition to my stats, otherwise, it would have been almost impossible to find out how much time had passed. Because not only are there no windows in our cell, but also no sources of light whatsoever, except for the small light coming from my stat booster screen. For the past few hours, we've been trying to shake off the permanent paralysis effect of our prison cell and come up with a plan to fool the ogre guards into releasing us. So far, we've made no significant progress on either front. Darren and Hadric managed to remove their paralysis spells temporarily by focusing all of their magical energy into giving their muscles a powerful jolt, but they were barely able to move 3 feet before the spell was automatically cast on them once more. Of the 5 of us trapped here, I appear to be the only one that can move my hands, even if only slightly. It turns out that partial resistance to paralysis is one of my perks that I get for being a Lesathai, along with a higher than average resistance to electricity. That being said, this newfound ability of mine hasn't really helped me much, except for being able to take the stat device out of my pocket in order to use it to make a makeshift candle. Seeing that we couldn't free ourselves from the paralysis spell, we decided to shift our focus towards engineering a plan to have the ogres open the door and cancel the spell for us. Unfortunately, despite our renowned stupidity, or their renowned stupidity, the ogres are under strict orders to not let us go under any circumstances, and they were much too afraid of their captain to risk going against his wishes. Rose hasn't spoken a single word since we got imprisoned. Iluna's betrayal must have really affected her. The rest of us aren't exactly in the best of moods either. We are far from having given up. Since the ogres are afraid of letting us die of starvation because of our collars, we are expecting them to come bring us food, sooner or later. At the moment they open the door, Darren and Hadric will use their muscle jolt techniques and make a run for it, in the short time that they have at their disposal before they get paralyzed again. They will then find the control panel that cancels the paralysis spell, and we'll all be free to roam their stronghold at our leisure. Whatever. It's not a perfect plan, but it's better than just to roll over and accept our fates. That accursed Banshee, Darren says. I knew from the beginning that she was plotting something. We were so heavily under-equipped for this mission that I had no choice but to accept Flower's help when she offered it. But now I'm starting to regret that I didn't listen to my instincts instead. I don't know, she's really went this far, so yeah, she sure did a number on us. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the bottom. Actually, I'm not so sure that she really betrayed us. Have you gone daft? Darren asked me. No, think about it for a second, I tell him. When she was asked how to deal with us, she purposely omitted the fact that our collars are set to electrocute us if we distance ourselves too much from each other. She only told the shaman about our 5 days limit. What if she was just buying time, so that she could walk around the stronghold's premises unhindered, in order to map its layouts? You're overthinking this, Barry, Darren says. It's probably just the fact that the collars would have exploded anyway, after electrocuting us. Running out of the clock was likely the only thing that had killed us safely. Otherwise, she would have mentioned something else. I don't think that's true, Kate says. Even if we take into account the fact that the Lesathai were significantly more technologically advanced than any of the current predominant races, there is just no way that such small devices could blow up this entire fort. If there really is a self-destruct mechanism implanted in these collars, I doubt that it could take out more than a room full of ogres. I think the Banshee knew this fact, and she was banking on the ogre's lack of expertise on this particular subject when she lied to them about it. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, Kate, but all this sort of sounds like wishful thinking to me, Hadric says. You don't really think that the Banshee is just going to show up here and open our cell, Cancel the paralysis spell and tell us that everything was her plan all along, do you? Almost immediately after the dwarf finishes his question, we hear one of the ogre guards from inside our cell shouting loudly. Halt, he says. You are not permitted to go any further. Turn back now or... The ogre stops mid-sentence, and the next thing we hear is a loud thump outside of our door. Ha! I hear Araka's voice through the stone walls of our cell. That ogre must have been so focused on forming a coherent sentence that he didn't even notice his head being cut off. Do you ever shut up, Aluna asks her. Hey, you let me out of this amulet and I promise you won't hear another word from me again, Araka says, as she starts laughing. A few moments later, I can feel the paralysis slowly starting to wear off. As I start to regain control of my limbs, shortly afterwards, our cell doors creak open and we see Aluna standing in front of us, with her usual displeased expression on her face. Well, what are you waiting for, she says. Get up. That chalice isn't going to steal itself. Ha-ha! Seeing that none of us are saying anything, Aluna starts to speak again. The girl told you before coming here that we had a secret plan, didn't she? She says... Didn't she says. Well, this is the plan. I'm busting you out. Now come on. We shouldn't be lingering too much time in one place. Yeah, I'm not buying it, Darren says. I'm much more inclined to believe that your deal with the ogres didn't work out as well as you were hoping. And now you're trying to use us to get back at them. The proof is that you didn't tell us about your plan beforehand. I couldn't tell you beforehand, you oaf, Aluna says. Your reactions need to be genuine when I betrayed you. The shaman can tell from your auras if you're actually shocked or just pretending. This is the reason why I had to put Flower to sleep. As a banshee, I'm the only one who the shaman can't read, because I am in complete control of my emotions, as well as my aura fluctuations. Oh yeah, Darren says? Well, why don't you wake the girl up, then, so she can confirm all this by herself. The stasis I put on Flower cannot be undone forcibly without risking serious complications, Aluna says. The spell usually lasts 2 days, so I didn't have the time to wait for her to wake up before coming to rescue you. How convenient, Darren says. The banshee frowns at him. If you don't feel like breaking out of this cell, then I'll just take the others with me and leave you here to rot. Oh, I'll come with you, don't worry. But as soon as I get my sword back, you're in for a world of hurt. I see. As she gestures with her hand. All of our weapons come floating inside the cell, and I'm not going to lie, that would be a bit problematic for me. She then gestures with her right hand towards us, and my dagger and crossbow get thrown in my lap, while at the same time, Kate's dagger gets thrown to her right hand. The banshee then grabs Darren's sword, and she eyes him up intently. Darren tries to get up, but the effect of the paralysis still hasn't completely worn off, so he staggers to his feet. After looking at him for a few seconds, Aluna decides to throw his sword at me instead. To me instead. Here, you take it, the banshee tells me. You seem to have a decent head on your shoulders, and you know him better than I do. I'll let you decide whether to give him his sword or not, given the circumstances. Barry, Darren says, as he gets up and starts walking towards me. Give me the sword. He's got that look in his eyes again. I know that look. He isn't thinking straight. He's going to attack Aluna as soon as I give him the weapon back, isn't he? Just what am I supposed to do here exactly? I'll do that. I'll give you the sword on one condition, I tell him. You have to swear not to attack Aluna with it. Again with this, Darren says. Don't tell me that you actually believe her lies. It doesn't matter what I think I say. Either way you look at it, this isn't the time to be fighting each other. Now are you going to swear or not? Darren frowns at me. Fine, I'll swear it, he says. But only until we are all safe distance from the ogre fort. Good enough for me, I say. I toss him the sword. As the five of us exit our cell, Aluna makes a gesture with her right hand, and a stone dislodges itself from a nearby wall. Darren's shield comes in, floating out of the hole in the wall in Darren's hand. I don't understand, Darren says. Why did the ogres place my shield inside the wall? They didn't, Aluna says. It was stashed in the same place as all the other weapons. I hid it before unlocking your cell to make sure I had the upper hand, in case you decide to challenge me again, like you did last night. Now then, if we're all done here, I suggest we get going. I already found out where they're holding the chalice. Convenient. Is that all? Rose asks, with an uncharacteristically furious expression on her face, while a tear is forming in one of her eyes. Is that all you're going to say after what you did to us? I already told you, Aluna says. I had to keep the truth from you in order to make sure that your reactions were genuine. and it was all necessary for carrying out our plan. Oh yeah, Rose asked. And what about all those mean things you said before we got teleported to our cell? What about when you said that I was too trusting for my own good, and that I was a fool for not having listened to Darren? Was all that necessary too? As Rose finished asking her question, I could see Iluna's cold expression change for a brief moment. In that moment, she almost seemed human. No, Iluna says, after a short pause, it was not. I only said all of that because I wanted to get back at you for not letting me rest the other night. I overreacted. I apologize. The fury in Rose's eyes disappeared upon hearing Iluna's words. She looks a bit confused. I don't think she was expecting such an honest reply. Well, as long as you won't do it again, Rose says. Araka starts laughing hysterically. Iluna, apologizing, she says? Quick, find a place to hide. Barricade yourselves. The world as we know it may well be coming to an end. I told you to be quiet, Iluna says. Hey, if you want to shut me up, or you could just close the ambient like you always do. Araka says, oh wait, if you do that, you'll lose your precious map that we spent all of those hours in the library putting together. I guess you'll just have to put up with me for a while longer then. Ha 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 ha. I hadn't really paid much attention to the semi-transparent magical hologram floating in front of Iluna until Araka mentioned it. But now I realize that it is in fact a miniature version of the Ogre stronghold. Not only that, but there are also colored dots inside that are continuously moving. I can only assume that the moving dots represent the Ogre patrols from the stronghold, and that the 6 dots standing in place on the upper level of the wall excuse me, must represent our own group. That's amazing, Kate says. The entire detailed hologram is being maintained by Araka? Yes, and Luna says. We spent a few hours in the library documenting the stronghold layout, in order to recreate it as accurately as possible. Araka's magical sense is powerful enough that she can easily detect all living creatures in our area, even if their auras are being masked by that pesky Shaman spell that also grants invisibility. So she can just display them as dots on the map, for all of us to see. With this much information in our hands, the ogres could not surprise us. So we've encountered no resistance while we cleaned out this entire floor and hid the bodies. Nice. Well, I already know that they can't because she just mentioned it. So why do the dots have different colors? The blue dots are mages. The red dots are the warriors. The green dot is the shaman, and the purple dot is the captain, Iluna says. She can tell the difference, Kate asks? Yes. If your magical sense is good enough, you can make the distinction quite easily based on their level of their magical power, or even their unique aura signatures. Right now, we need to make it all the way to the lowest level of the main building, where their treasury is being located. Hold on, Hadric says before we get going. I think there's still one more issue that needs to be cleared up. The shaman called you Iluna of the Sacred Woods Massacre earlier, and he said that you killed hundreds of animals without mercy. What was all that about? Oh, I can answer that question for her, Araka says. Araka, I swear, if you don't shut up, Iluna says. Araka says, you'll what? Iluna doesn't say anything. That's what I thought, Araka says. So anyway, I was saying, in order to better understand the events of the Sacred Woods Massacre, I need to tell you a little story first. It is a story about 3 young banshees that I decided to take under my wing out of the kindness of my heart a few hundred years ago. Their names were Sidara, Unuri, and Iluna. Wait, you used to be Iluna's guardian, Hadric asks? No, I used to be her mentor, Araka says. I was the one being she looked up to the most. I remember the 3 of them once saying they wanted to be like me when they grew up, and that before they knew it, who I really was, of course. I spent years of my life teaching them everything I knew. I taught them how to defend themselves from banshee hunters and white mages. I taught them how to tell when their bodies were starting to reject them so they could start looking for a new house in good time. In other words, I taught them how to survive. That was awfully nice of you, Kate says, with a frigid tone in her voice. I know, right? It was all a sham, of course. To tell you the truth, I was starting to get a little bored with the small amount of suffering I could bring to the world while trapped in weak animal bodies. So this time I decided to try something a little different. I spent years of my life making myself into the sort of motherly figure for the 3 young banshees, and all in order to make it more painful for them when I inevitably betrayed them. But as time passed, my original perspective began to change. As I got to know the 3 banshees better, I started to grow fond of Iluna. She was my star pupil, after all, and she reminded me a bit of myself when I was her age. So instead of simply having her killed along with the others. I decided to instead shape her in my own image. Okay. Araka, that's enough. But of course, in order to shape her into my own image, I need to utterly destroy her first. Araka continues, ignoring Aluna. So I started to teach her even more than I taught the others. I made sure that she knew all kinds of obscure techniques and that she could control her water element to perfection. Then, when the time came, I led them all into one of the sacred woods. It was easy to get them to follow me. They all trusted me with their lives. And they didn't know that I was taking them into forbidden territory. Poor Inuri and Sadara were no match for the valiant guardians of the forest, and Aluna was not strong enough to fight all the enemies by herself while also protecting her friends. Araka, I'm warning you. Oh, and Aluna was simply adorable, Araka says. Did I tell you? Back then she absolutely refused to kill other living creatures unless she had no other choice. She would be depressed for days after changing hosts, because she'd been forced to end someone's life without their consent. Needless to say, even in a dire situation such as this, Aluna was still refused to kill the animals, and simply incapacitated them. I know this because I was watching the whole thing from above, while laughing continuously. They didn't understand what I was doing at first. They kept calling for me, begging me to save them like I always did. They saw all the events unfold before their eyes, but their minds simply couldn't comprehend it. It was only when Unari and Sadara got impaled that the cold, hard reality finally hit Aluna in the face. As Araka speaks, I can feel Aluna's aura starting to fluctuate violently. This is the first time I've ever seen her exhibit such strong emotions about something. Usually, the flow of her aura is almost indiscernible from that of the air around her. She kept shouting at the animals to let her pass, Araka says. She kept telling them to get out of her way, but they wouldn't listen. So, in a fit of rage, Aluna exterminated every single one of those guardians, leaving no survivors. And then she hurried over to her friends' sides, grabbing their lifeless bodies and shaking them desperately as if she were expecting them to suddenly come back to life. Please, she said, don't leave me. I don't want to be alone. Ha 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 ha. That's kind of sick, actually. Aluna closed the amulet and gripped it firmly with her hand. I could see her hand shaking as she held on the amulet, and I think I could almost hear a crack coming from it. Just as Araka warned, the hologram of the fort disappeared almost as soon as she closed the locket. Bring it back, Aluna says, curtly, as she opens the amulet again. Araka says. Bring what back? Oh, you mean the hologram? The hologram's gone. Didn't you see it go poof? I'll need hours to recreate it again. You should have just listened to me when you had the chance, but no, you just had to be your old, stubborn self again. I said bring it back. Aluna shouts at her. A brief pause followed Aluna's words, during which nobody spoke a word. All right, fine, Araka says after a while, as she conjures back the miniature Ogre fort, with all of its details still intact. I swear you have absolutely no sense of humor. I don't know why that girl puts up with you. Or how, rather, sorry. Aluna ignores Araka, and then she turns to Hadric. I trust that Araka's explanation about the Sacred Woods Massacre will suffice, she asked him, with a dark look on her face. Or would you perhaps like to hear more details? No, Hadric says. I think I'm good, thanks. Aluna then turns around and starts leading us towards the lower levels. As we all follow her in silence, thanks to Araka's map, we were able to successfully avoid most of the guards as we made our way towards the treasure room. Excuse me. The ones that we couldn't avoid were quickly and silently dispatched by Aluna. Her way of doing things was completely opposite to her flowers. She was cold and calculated, and she would use the girl's athletic prowess to her advantage when going in for the kill. Every time she had to take out an ogre guard, she'd climb onto one of the walls, position herself above him, and then hang from the ceiling to deliver the finishing blow. It took us less than a half hour to reach the treasure room, situated at the lowest level of the stronghold's main building. There are only 2 guards at the entrance, who were easily dealt with. However, even if we made sure to hide all the bodies on our way here, it's only likely a matter of time before an ogre patrol realizes something is wrong and raises the alarm. We're going to need to move fast and get out of here before that happens. Upon entering the ogre's treasury, I could see that it is filled with mountains upon mountains of gold, as well as dozens of coffers which had all manner of jewels and fineries inside of them. If only I had made my enchanted backpack with me now. If only I had. I would have filled it with the brim with treasures. Still, there's plenty of room in my pockets for me to stash a few of these small, expensive gems. The diamonds in particular should fetch me a hefty sum in any respectable market. After all, when will I ever get a chance like this? They're probably booby trapped, so I'm not going to touch anything. I resist the urge to fill my pockets with priceless gems and continue forward. A few moments later, the six of us stop in front of a marble. Excuse me, it's a little late. On top of a marble pedestal, on top which lies the chalice we have come here to retrieve. Don't make any loud noises, Luna tells us in a low voice. The ogre captain and his troops are standing right behind that wall from behind the chalice. Which one's the ogre captain? Hadric asks as he stares in front of the hologram. The purple dot, Luna says. The red dots scattered around him are his troops. How come the room they are in isn't marked on the map? Kate asks. It's because it didn't appear in any of the building plans, and we studied in the library. It's probably a hidden room that they use for their top secret meetings. The way they placed the chalice on top of the pedestal like that just screams trap to me, Darren says. Was there any documentation regarding the traps they used to defend this room? Unfortunately, no, Luna says, and I'm not sensing any magic around it either. If there are any traps, they're going to be similar in nature to those from the ruins. Can we even be sure that they've got the right chalice? Hadrix asks. No, says. I mean, it looks like it, but they could easily have made a fake and placed it in plain sight to throw us off course. There's an easy way to test its authenticity, Luna says, as she uses her water magic to fill the chalice with water. After a few seconds, the water inside starts to radiate magic, and then it begins to shine brightly, as if there were a small sun floating right above it. That settles it, Luna says. This is the chalice we're looking for. She then grabs it off the pedestal and empties it of the water, as we look all around to see if any traps get activated. Ooh, probably. Huh, Hadric says. I guess we overestimated the ogres a bit, and when we assumed they were smart enough to actually come up with a... The dwarf doesn't get to finish his sentence as the floor below us quickly starts to rotate, along with us in the wall behind the pedestal. 2 seconds later, we find ourselves standing in a room full of ogres, with the captain of the stronghold grinning at us. Maliciously. I suspected Banshee from the start, the captain says, in his broken common. I told great Shaman he made mistake for trusting Banshee. But Shaman, no, listen. I knew you come here sooner or later with your friends to steal treasure. So I wait for you in secret ambush room. These are my finest warriors, and they all thirst for blood. No Banshee, or human, leave this place alive tonight. Araka starts laughing. Is that a fact, Fatso? She says. Darren wastes no time as he rushes towards the captain, but the ogre was ready for him, and he hit him with his club as soon as he got within range. Darren instinctively placed his shield between him and the ogre's weapon, but the force behind it hit was so great that it sent him flying into a nearby wall. Ooh. Hadric is the next one who dashes towards the captain, and the ogre hits him with his club as well. The dwarf stops the weapon by putting his hands above his head, and the floor below them begin to crumble from the impact of the club's strike. While the two of them duel, Iluna starts to apply some pressure to the other ogres by using her water whips, while doing cartwheels all over the place in order to avoid getting hit by their clubs. Not bad for puny dwarf, the captain says. But let me ask something. Does dwarf know what lies beneath Stronghold floor? Yeah, it's called a hill, he says. They're kind of like mountains, only smaller. I can draw you a picture if it makes you easier to understand if you want. That only partly correct, dwarf, the captain says with a wicked grin. It's true that there is hill below us, but inside the hill there is abandoned mines, which was used by the goblins before us. The wood and scaffolding leading down must be rotten by now. The two of us stand right above the cave wall, but I can't say the same for your friends. There is 300-foot drop into a floor of mines. Can your friends be flying, dwarf? The captain then roars loudly, and all of his troops fall back toward the middle of the room. Iluna takes advantage of this, and she uses her water whips to behead them all in a single motion. Over here, she says, as she waves quick to us from the middle of the ogre's corpse. This must be one of the safe areas. Quick. The ogre captain grins widely upon hearing Iluna's words. He kicks Hadric out of his way and readies his club to smash the floor beneath us. Oh, I don't know what to do. Oh. He was laughing after she beheaded his troops, so he probably doesn't care, and the ogres are pretty stupid. I'm gonna stay there. No, I tell Rose and Kate, don't move. That's exactly what he wants us to do. Just stay where you are. The two of them hesitate for a second, but after looking me in the eye, they both decide to trust my judgment and stay behind with me. Seriously, Aluna says, as the ogre captain smashes his club in the ground. The floor starts to shatter, but as I predicted, the cracks in the ground stop forming right in front of us. It turns out that we were standing above one of the underground cave walls, just like Hadric and the ogre captain. Aluna reacts quickly by jumping on a wall and using it to propel herself to our position before the floor crumbles beneath her feet. Well, what do you know, she says. You're actually right. Darren, Rose shouts, while looking down inside the chasm that had formed in the middle of the room. Looking inside the pit, I see that Darren is hanging from a wooden beam, which is beginning to crack under his weight. I had completely forgotten about that he got thrown into a wall at the beginning of the fight. He must have still been in a dazed state when the floor started crumbling. As I looked below to see if there were any footholds I could use to get him, I realized that even if I managed to somehow reach his position, there was no way that I could climb back up. The wooden scaffolding is practically unusable at this point. All that's left of it are some support pillars and a few beams here that look like they could break any second. Stay where you are, Darren shouts at us. Whatever you do, don't come down here. Don't worry, I have everything under control. He's lying. At most, he's got half a minute before that beam breaks under his weight. He has no way of climbing back up. He must be trying to protect us. You bastard, Hadric shouts at the ogre captain, as he clashes with him once again. You were the one who told us the ogres that the middle of the room was a safe area. Weren't you? Were those soldiers' lives worth nothing to you? Ha, the captain says. Those weren't my finest warriors. They were just cannon fodder. All of them were replaceable. I alone strong enough to deal with the lot of you. Look below. One of your friends are already at the end of his rope. The rest of you are going to follow him soon. That's cold. The beam Darren is holding onto cracks loudly. He doesn't have much time left. Completely out of the blue, Aluna jumps past us into the pit. She uses one of the wooden pillars to propel herself back towards the cave's wall, which she then uses to push herself further down to the pit and back towards the wooden pillar. She jumps back and forth between the pillar and the wall a few times until she finally reaches Darren's level. She then grabs the cave walls with her left hand and she extends her right hand towards Darren. Healer, grab my hand, Aluna says. Like hell I will, Darren says. The wooden beam cracks again. This time it looks like it's about to break. Healer, there's no time, Aluna shouts. Grab my damn hand. Darren looks at her hesitantly for a few seconds, but he doesn't get the time to think on it any further because the wooden beam finally cracks under his weight, and he starts falling into the chasm. Aluna pushes herself into the wall with all of her strength and jumps towards Darren, grabbing him with her right hand. As the two of them fall in the pit, they start shining brightly, and right before they reach the ground, they disappear and then reappear on the floor right in front of us, safe and sound. No, the ogre captain shouts as he tries to smash Hadric with his club again. What's the matter, Hadric asks him, as he blocks his strike yet again. Didn't you say that you'd easily deal with a lot of us by yourself? You should be glad that you've granted the opportunity to finish us all with your own hands. Aluna, can't you help him? Rose asks. I don't know how much longer Hadric can keep this up. The ogre is wearing anti-magic armor from head to toe, Aluna says. This means I can't make my water sharp against him, so my whips and arrows are out of the question. Normally I'd use one of my whips to pull him into the chasm, but he's just too big and heavy for me to move with the amount of magical energy I have at my disposal. My stronger spells would probably penetrate his defenses, but they aren't designed to hit a single target, so I'd risk hitting the dwarf along with the ogre captain if I use them. There must be something we can do, Rose says. Hey dwarf, Araka shouts loudly. Remember how I told you about the ogre's weak spot is at the base of their necks? It's time for you to put that secret technique I taught you to good use. Hadric laughs. Aye, he says, grinning widely. I suppose it's time for me to stop fooling around. The ogre captain suddenly stops attacking Hadric, and he uses his club to guard his neck. Hadric focuses all of his aura in his right fist, and he punches a hole through the ogre's chest armor, making the captain fall to his knees, drop his club, and start coughing up blood. Hadric seizes the opportunity to grab the ogre's club and throws it inside the chasm. Why? The ogre asks as he coughs up more blood. Why did you go for the chest instead of the neck? Wasn't secret technique supposed to be aimed for weak point? Hadric and Araka both start laughing simultaneously. There was no secret technique, you moron, Araka says. I only said that to make you panic and focus all your defenses on a single point. I guess it only took 2 of us to defeat you after all, Hadric says, grinning. Maybe you should have brought some real soldiers with you instead of small fries. This not over yet, dwarf, the ogre says as he coughs out more. I'm going to crush your puny head, and Hadric doesn't let the ogre finish his threat, and he crushes his head between his hands. As the ogre's lifeless body drops to the ground, the dwarf jumps over to the other side of the room and grins at Araka. That wasn't half bad for a spirit of joy and laughter, he tells her. You've certainly earned your quota for the day of making me laugh to my heart's content. Well, seriously now, Araka says. I couldn't let them kill you, the only person on this entire group who laughs at my jokes. You can buy me a beer when I get out of this amulet. I'm not sure if that's going to work, though, since I'm probably going to kill you all within seconds of escaping. Ha 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 ha. Have you gone out of your mind, Banshee? Darren shouts furiously all of a sudden. Who, me? Araka says. Not you, Darren says. The other Banshee. Why, because I teleported you out of the pit? Aluna says. You're not seriously going to start claiming that you could have gotten out of there by yourself, are you? Of course not, Darren says. I was about to die, and then you saved me. Why would you save me? My death would have benefited you in every way, and no one could have blamed you if you let me die. What could you possibly have hoped to achieve from this? I see no reason to justify my actions to you, Aluna says. Figure it out by yourself. Darren's face is so red with anger that he looks like he might explode at any second. We've got no time for this, Kate says. Look at the map. All the ogres that were sleeping are awake and taking their stations. The others are frantically patrolling the halls as if they're looking for something. Excuse me. They must have discovered one of the dead bodies and raised the alarm. The shaman has just left his quarters and is now assembling a team to follow him. That means we won't be able to sneak out the fort through the front gate anymore, Aluna says. I don't think it's a good idea to fight all these ogres head on. Luckily for us, the room we are in right now isn't marked in any of the building plans, so most patrols aren't very likely to come searching for us here. Our best bet is to descend to the caverns below us, and then follow the underground tunnels until we reach the exit at the base of the hill. How do you know the caverns lead below us to a dead end? How are we going to get all the way? Yeah. How do you know the caverns below us won't lead to a dead end? We found a pretty detailed map of the tunnels in the ogre's library, Luna says. Araka, do you think you can add it to the map of the fort? Yeah, give me a second, Araka says. A few moments later, a new level gets added to the fort's hologram, showing us a layout of the underground tunnels in detail. The caverns appear to indeed to have an exit, but there are several ogre mages stationed right in front of it. These guards are at the exit, Luna says. Good, that means that the tunnels are still being used to a certain extent, and there should be no cave-ins blocking our path. How will we get down there with the scaffolding broken? Kate asks. While I was following earlier, I saw that there was another scaffolding right below the room beyond the wall on our right, Luna says. It appears to be in good condition, so there should be no problem climbing all the way down to the bottom of their mines. Can't you just cast your teleportation spell from earlier, Hadric says? You know, the one you used to rescue Darren from the pit? No, I can only cast that spell once a day, Luna says. It's the same for the golden cage spell I used to trap you when we entered the fort. That's why I didn't use it on the ogres while I was fighting them. So you could still cast the teleportation spell now, if not for me, Darren says. Yes, but the spell only allows me to teleport one other person with me, so it wouldn't have been much use to us here. Ooh, man. Aluna says, plus, it is very limited range, so it's not like I could use it for travel either. I rarely get the chance to use that spell, to be honest. Alright then, Hadric says, I'm going to smash through this wall so we can get to the other room. After Hadric destroys the wall, we see the floor in the middle of the adjacent room had also crumbled after the ogre's smash. The cave wall from our side of the pit and one on the opposite side seemed to extend all the way to the end of the other room, and probably beyond it as well. Just as Aluna said, the scaffolding below the other room seems to be mostly intact, and it shouldn't be too risky to climb down the wooden ladders until we reach the bottom. Let's get going, Darren says, before the ogres find this room and the shaman tells them about it. Or the shaman tells them about it. It took us a few minutes to climb down all the ladders, but there are no incidents, and we all arrive safely at the bottom of the mines. The only source of light that we have at the moment is Araka's hologram, but it's shining brighter than a torch, and the map of the tunnels is very exact, so there's no danger of us getting lost. I think one of the ogre mages that were accompanying the shaman just teleported near the ones guarding the tunnel exit, Kate says. I saw one of the blue dots disappearing from above and another one from below. He's probably sent a messenger to tell the ogres to be on their guard, Aluna says. Yeah, they're turning invisible as we speak, Araka says. A lot of good that will do them. But it won't be hard to fight them even with a map while they are invisible, Rose asks. The invisibility spell they are using cannot be maintained during combat. They're only using it for the element of surprise. They'll be forced to reveal themselves once the fight begins. Araka's right. The spell will do them no good whatsoever. As we get closer to the exit, we see the ogres in front of the fort are starting to flock towards the secret room, and some of them have already reached the scaffolding. The shaman's group seems to be heading this way as well. Damn it, Hedrick says. The shaman must have tipped them off to the secret room. If we don't pick up our pace, we'll end up getting surrounded. Wait, don't move, Araka says. Something's wrong. I can feel it. Give me a minute. We don't have a minute, Darren says. The shaman and his ogres are breathing down our necks. Why would there be something wrong? I don't know yet, Araka says. That's why I need a minute. Maybe there are traps ahead of us, Rose asks. I doubt it, Hedrick says. Given that there are guards stationed at the exit, I'm guessing that these tunnels are still being used as a potential escape route in case the fort is under siege. I don't see why they would need to risk running into their own traps while they were in a hurry to abandon the stronghold. Those guards should be enough to keep any unwanted outsiders waiting for the tunnels. Yeah. And there was no way they would have had enough time to set up a trap in a few minutes they had at their disposal since they've been announced to our escape. The only kind of trap they might have placed is a magical one, but those can be easily detected by anyone with decent magical sense. Some of the ogres are already halfway down the scaffolding. We don't have much time. We could wait at least. Ogres reach the cave floor. Screw rack. We can't afford it. She has the map. Yeah, no. We could at least wait until the ogres reach the cave floor. They still need another 5 minutes to catch up to us after that, so we'll have plenty of time left to finish off the guards and exit the tunnels. Fine, Darren says, but if she doesn't have an answer until then, we're making a run for it. I've got it. After a while, there's a powerful magical explosion trap some 200 feet ahead of our position. Keep going, I'll tell you when to stop. What are you talking about, Darren says, as we all start going forward. I'm not sensing any traps. That's because it's really well hidden. I can barely sense any magic coming from it, but it's there. Here, I'll highlight the area so you know where it is. Soon after she's done talking, a small area in front of us gets covered in blue light. When we get closer, Darren starts waving his sword in the air, as if he was trying to catch a light with it. Well, I'll be damned, Darren says. Stand back, I'm going to disarm the trap. He then starts slicing through the air in a triangular motion a few times in a row. Suddenly, we hear a loud popping noise, and then there's smoke coming out of nowhere. The smoke soon disappears, and Araka's blue light fades along with it. I think that should about cover it, Darren says. Yeah, the trap's gone, Araka says. Only the ogres are left. Give me a sec, I'll highlight them too. Enough! We hear the shaman's voices, and he soon materializes out of thin air, along with the 5 ogre mages accompanying him. I don't know how you're able to see through my trap and through my invisibility spell, but now I know why you've been able to avoid all my patrols on your way to the treasure room. Oh, don't be so modest, Shaman, Araka says as she changes the blue dot corresponding to the shaman into a purple color. You must have at least some idea that this was happening, otherwise you wouldn't have purposely taken the magical signature of one of your troops when you came down here in order to check my magical sense. What's that? Decoy you left behind with your own magical signature anyway, a clone? No, the shaman says, it's one of my followers holding an artifact that copies my aura. Fascinating, Araka says as she changes the original purple dot's color into blue. How did you find it where we were? Aluna says. Me and Captain had telepathic link, which was meant to warn me once he left the realm of the living, the shaman says. You're going to pay for this, little traitor. My followers are going to turn you all into ashes. He then raises his staff in the air, and 5 other ogres step in front of him, casting fireballs in unison at us. Hedrick and Darren both step in front as well, in order to form a first line of defense. The dwarf focuses his aura into his fist, and he sends 2 of the fireballs right back at the ogres. Darren places his sword in front of him, absorbing the other 3 fireballs within it. He then slashes his flame sword towards the ogres and sends the powerful fire beam at them, which burns them into a crisp. You've done it now, the shaman says, with a dark look in his eyes. As he looks at the ashes of his 5 followers, I didn't plan to use this on you, but you leave me no choice. He then smacks the staff to the ground, and the whole room gets filled with thick gray fog. As the fog clears a bit, I realize that we are no longer standing in the middle of the cavern, but on an open plain, and it appears to be snowing. My eyes are not deceiving me. It really is snowing. There's thick layers of snow on the ground, and the trees I see in the distance are all covered with snow as well. Could this be an illusion? Damn it, Arrakis says. I completely lost track of him. He went invisible again, and I can't sense his aura at all. Actually, I can't feel any of your auras either. What the hell? You aren't the only one, Kate says. I've completely lost my magical sense as well. Could this have anything to do with the fog? No, Luna says. This is a shaman ritual. Basically, it's a very advanced mind-affecting spell. We're not in the real world anymore, and thus these are different rules. We're not missing only our magical senses, but also our magical powers. You are already wearing collars, so you can't tell the difference, but me and Araka cannot cast any spells at this moment. Also, it would appear that ranged weapons are not allowed either, since Barry's crossbow is gone. I think magical items are still functional, though, since the shaman must have used his staff in order to turn invisible. So what's happening in the real world right now? Who cares? Yeah, why not? So what's happening in the real world right now? Does the shaman plan to kill us all while we're trapped here? No, Aluna says. Shaman rituals are different from other mind-affecting spells. First of all, time flows differently in this place. A year spent in this world only amounts to 1 second in the real world. Secondly, the shaman is also trapped in here with us. So, what's the purpose then? Hadric says. Isn't this like some sort of dream? Aren't we just going to wake up once we die? You may not be familiar with these types of spells, since they aren't all that common on other continents, Iluna says. But this isn't anything like a dream. You can feel pain, you can concentrate without waking up, and if you die here, you die in the real world as well. What's actually happening is that our souls from the ethereal plane are no longer directly connected to the earthen plane, but to another pocket universe from the ethereal plane. In order to reattach our souls to our bodies, we need to close our eyes, think of it the last moment before we're teleported here, or transported here, and get a clear image of those caverns in our heads, and then focus on it, with the conviction that an image in our heads represents the real world, while the world we are standing in is only an illusion. The image in our heads would then slowly start becoming more vivid, until it would eventually replace the world in front of our eyes. In order to get out of here, we need to do all that, Darren asks, including the shaman. Exactly, Ilona says. Our problem is the shaman. Until we get rid of him, we won't be able to return to the real world. That's why he trapped himself here with us. How are we supposed to fight him if he got complete control of this world, Hadric says. Wouldn't it be like fighting some sort of god? No. The shaman does not have any control of this world. He only created it. Once he is trapped himself in here, he became forced to follow the same rules as the rest of us. That is the nature of the shaman rituals. He does not have any magic either, except for the spells in his staff. And since he's been gracious enough to let us finish our conversation, I would suspect that he has no intention of fighting us head on. He must be waiting for something. As the fog disappears completely, we see that there are several pairs of red eyes shining in the dark depths of the forest, and we start to hear several low, continuous growls as their creatures are getting closer. When they come out of the woods, we learn that they are, in fact, wolves. Though they are at least 3 times the size of normal ones, and their fur is black as coal. That's kind of terrifying. 5 of them start running towards our group, while Darren and Hadric step in front of us and assume their battle stances. 3 of the wolves go right for them, but the other 2 circle around and go for Kate and Aluna instead. Darren defended himself with a shield from one of the wolves, and he sliced the other's head clean off. Hadric punches the 3rd wolf in the mouth and sent 3 of its fangs flying, as the animal squealed in pain. Kate was waiting for the beast with her dagger in her hand. The animal dashed towards her, but she managed to get behind it in the blink of an eye, and she slits its throat with a single motion, and her hands got drenched in wolf's blood. The look in her eyes changed completely when she started fighting the wolf. She's always had a sort of feral look about her, but this was more than that. This wasn't her just being ruthless or efficient. Those were the eyes of a beast hunting its prey. This might be why she was able to survive alone in the jungle at the age of 12, before she even had any magic. In order to avoid being hunted, she was forced to become the hunter instead. Iluna, who did not have any weapons, started jumping around using flowers and acrobatic techniques, in order to confuse the wolf and avoid getting bitten. Once Darren and Hadric finished dealing with their own wolves, they came and killed the one attacking Luna as well. This is why the shaman didn't take any action, Hadric says. He was too busy getting away from here, so his own wolves wouldn't attack him. Luckily for us, he left a trail of footsteps in the snow that we can easily follow. He then points towards the trail of footsteps left by the shaman, which leads directly into the only part of the forest which doesn't seem to be crawling with wolves. If we all go after the shaman now, we'll have to fight the wolves at every step of the way, Darren says. That would only make it easier for him to finish us off. Perhaps someone should go after the shaman alone, while the rest of us provide a distraction. Preferably someone who is confident that he can defeat the shaman in a duel, and who can handle himself against a few wolves. In that case, they don't take all the bait. Alright. Well, the shaman can't really do anything. I'll go after the shaman. I volunteer for the job, I say. I should be able to handle the shaman by myself if he can only cast spells from a staff. Are you sure? Darren says. We don't know how many wolves are going to come out of that forest, I say. You and Hadric should both stay here in case things get really bad. I'll try to end this as quickly as possible. Wish me luck. I then start running towards the woods in the direction of the shaman's footsteps. As I enter the forest, I start to slow my pace, making sure there's no traps or ambushes set up ahead of me. The footsteps have been leading me in the same direction since I started following them, and there have been no obstacles of any kind in my path since I walked in the woods. Could it be that the shaman was too busy getting as far away as possible from the wolves to lay down any kind of traps? I start to pick up my pace, while at the same time trying to remain as vigilant as possible. When it looks like I am finally starting to catch up to the shaman, I hide behind a tree, and then I take a good long look ahead of me. The trail of footsteps ends abruptly in the middle of the snow, and there is no one in sight. He must still be invisible. But why isn't he moving? Did he see me before I hid in the trees? I suddenly realize that the snow is not completely uniform on the right side near the end of the trail of footsteps. It's barely noticeable, but it's definitely different from the rest of the snow. That's it. That's why he's not moving. He must have purposely made his tracks so easy to follow in order to boost my confidence and make me attack without hesitation. He's trying to trick me into rushing towards the end of the trail, while in reality, he's covered his last set of tracks and he's waiting for me to attack from behind. Judging by the looks of the snow, I think I can guess accurately enough from where the shaman is actually standing. I grab my dagger firmly in both hands, and I start rushing towards the shaman. The ogre panics, and he dismisses his invisibility spell automatically as he prepares to attack me. Snap. His staff takes too long to charge up. I manage to stick my knife in his chest. The shaman spits out blood, and I prepare to land the finishing blow. The world suddenly starts spinning around me, and then I soon find myself standing in the middle of a cave again, with all my friends beside me. They all seem to have just woken up, because they are now looking around themselves to confirm they are indeed back in the abandoned mines below the Ogre Fort. Before I get time to fully regain my senses, a bright green light envelops Luna, and then it disappears almost as quickly as it disappeared. The shaman then starts laughing hoarsely, before coughing up some blood on the cave's floor. This is the end, Banshee, the shaman says, as he coughs up some more blood for both of us. That spell I cast on you was just a curse of death. A shamanic spell that kills both the caster and his target. You likely have less than an hour left to live. My life is forfeited in the moment I manage to get myself cornered within my own shaman ritual. But at least now I'll get satisfaction of dragging the traitor who started all of this mess to the underworld with me. He then laughs hoarsely again, and he starts to turn into ashes. Damn it, Hadric says as he's jumping towards the shaman, but all he got to punch are his ashes, and now are slowly piling up on the floor of the caverns. Luna was in a brief state of shock after the shaman's ritual, but then her expression darkened, and she went to sit by herself on the floor, with her back leaning against one of the cave walls. What are you waiting for? She asks, when she sees us looking at her. Get going. I'll hold the ogres off here. It's not like there's much else I can do in the little time I have left. It's true then, Rose asks. What the ogre said. Yes, Luna says. The curse is much too powerful for me to break with any of the spells I know. The shaman was being generous when he said that I get to live for another hour. From what I can tell, the curse is likely to kill me within the next 15 minutes. No, Rose shouts. You can't give up. You can't give up like this. There has to be a way to. No, Rose stops mid-sentence because she sees Darren staring towards Luna. When he reaches her, he lifts his sword and looks at the Banshee. Without uttering a word, Aluna looks at him and she laughs. Ooh. My apologies, she says. I nearly forgot that you wanted to have me purified. Well, here I am. Give it your best shot. With a little luck after you kill me, you might be able to wake Flower up from her station so she can say her goodbyes. Shut up, Darren says as he readies his sword. Darren, no, Rose shouts, as Darren sticks his sword into Luna's right leg. A bright white light surrounded the Banshee for a few seconds, and then a green smoke starts to come out of her, which evaporates into thin air soon afterwards. You, Aluna says, in a state of complete shock. What did you... I broke the curse, Darren says. I am both white mage and an enchanter, remember? It's only natural that my sword can do something as trivial as dispelling an ordinary death curse, without requiring me to use magic. This makes us even. You saved my life, and I saved yours. Now we can both move on with our lives and never speak of these events again. Agreed, Aluna says. After a while, she starts using her healing magic to patch up her wound. Aluna, thank the gods, Rose says, as she comes to give her a big hug. You're going to be okay now, right? There are no other curses? No, Aluna says, looking a bit flustered. No other curses as far as I can tell. There's still a matter of the hordes of ogres approaching us, though. No need to worry about that, Hadric says with a grin. I've got a plan. But first we all need to get out of the caves. Come on. Move, move, move. As we all get out of the abandoned mines, Hadric jumps into the air and he punches the rocks above the cave entrance. The whole rocky wall crumbles and completely blocks the path leading to the caverns. That's it, Darren asks. That's your plan? Simple, but effective, don't you think? Hadric says, with a wide grin. Did it cross your mind that they may have warriors within the ranks that are capable of moving a few rocks out of their way, Darren says. Not to mention all the mages that can just blow the rocks up. If they try to use explosives, they'll just bury themselves in, Aluna says. And from what I've seen, while I was talking around the fort, the captain was their only warrior that had the strength comparable to the dwarves. They can still use their air magic to move the rocks out of the way, but it will take them a while. That gives us more than enough time to make ourselves scarce. There you have it, Hadric says. Come on, let's go get our backpacks. Wait, Arek says. I'm sensing 2 ogres hiding invisibly near the base of the hill. Are they on their way? Darren asks. No, but they might try to ambush us later. Let's kill them. I think it's better to get rid of them, I say. If we let them live, they'll see which way we went and tell the other ogres to when they get out of the mines. Maybe you're right, Darren says. One can never be too careful. Let's go get this done real quick and head for our backpacks. We follow Arak's directions and reach the ogres in less than a minute. When they see that we've discovered them, the ogres dismiss their invisibility spell and try to attack us with their clubs, but Aluna beheaded them both with a single motion of her water whip. And then we all went back and headed towards the place where we'd buried our backpacks. Once we dig up all of our belongings, we waste no time to begin our long journey back to the Sacred Woods ruins. We've been keeping a relatively fast pace for the first hour in order to make sure that we put enough distance between ourselves and the ogres. But after confirming several times that we weren't being followed, we started to slow down a bit. The sun had already set when we left the stronghold, but there were many stars in the sky. The moon was almost full, so we decided to keep going until we were comfortable enough with the distance between ourselves and the ogre's territory. Healer, Aluna says, as we walked through the woods. After I released you from the cell, you promised that you wouldn't attack me until we escaped the fort. Now that we are at a safe enough distance from the ogres, you are no longer bound by that promise. Should I start to prepare my defenses? No, Darren starts to say, but he pauses. I don't really feel like fighting him more today. I see, Aluna says, eyeing him up suspiciously. Continue. I'm so glad that we didn't run into any mages since we left the ruins, Rose says, trying to change the subject. I would have taken us longer to complete our mission if we'd kept encountering people who attacked Kate out of the blue. Why are they attacking you specifically? Aluna asked Kate. Aren't most people in this group part of the same tournament? Yes, but I'm the only one here who gets mistaken for a banshee, Kate says. Flower tried to teach me how to suppress my aura well enough to pass as a normal human, but I just couldn't keep up with her. That girl has extraordinary talent when it comes to learning these things by herself, but she is a very poor teacher, Aluna says. The teacher in itself isn't that difficult to master. The technique, sorry. Oh my goodness. You only need a little guidance to learn the basics. For instance, a good starting point would be to practice calming the flow of your aura first. Here, let me show you how it's done. Aluna spent the next 2 hours teaching Kate how to suppress her aura, step by step, while we kept marching towards the ruins. But by the time she was done, I could see that they had made enormous progress. Kate's magical aura was barely noticeable when she'd suppressed it now, and you could very well confuse her with a normal human if you didn't examine her closely. The lessons Luna provided were interesting enough that it even made me and Hadric join in midway, and we both spent more than a half hour doing various exercises suggested by her to help us hide our auras from enemies. Once we found a good camping spot, we started to set up our tents. Hadric said that 2 of his spare tents needed to be fixed before they could be used again, so Rose offered to share her tent with Kate and Luna for the night. We then started discussing how to divide guard duty between ourselves. Kate and Rose and Hadric unanimously voted for me and Darren to take the first shift. Their flawless synchronization when they voted for us was suspicious to say the least, but I decided not to call them out on it for the time being. Before we went to sleep, Hadric insisted that we had hold a toast to celebrate our victory, but nobody seemed to be in the mood for drinking, given how tired they were after today's events. Offer a share to drink with Hadric before that? Yes, why not? Since nobody else offered, I told Hadric I'd share one drink with him before taking my shift. He pulled out 2 bottles of dwarven ale from his backpack. We then went to sit ourselves down on 2 rocks that were facing each other, away from the tents. When giants make a toast, they first spill a bit of ale on the ground. It also gives the warriors fallen in battle something to drink, Hadric says as he opens our 2 bottles. I always get in trouble when I do this at dwarven taverns, so it's refreshing to do it outside for a change. He raises a bottle. A toast, he says, for retrieving the chalice and coming one step closer to removing these blasted contraptions from our necks. We drink the 2 bottles and then we spill a bit of ale on the ground. We clink. Before starting to drink, this is the first time I've tasted anything like this. I felt a strong burning sensation as the ale went down my throat. I'm already starting to feel a bit dizzy. This doesn't even compare to the strongest drinks available in taverns on the western continent. First time drinking dwarven ale? Hadric asked with a grin. He sees my expression on my face. Yeah, I say, I knew it was supposed to be strong, but I guess I didn't expect it to be this much stronger than anything else I've drunk before. Snap. Aye, Hadric says. This is why I spent much of my time in Dwarven lands. Plus, the locals are really nice. Most of the tavern owners know that I'm a giant in disguise, but they welcome me with open arms. Regardless, part of that is probably because they'd lose a quarter of their monthly profit if they stop receiving me. But still, aren't giants usually not welcome in Dwarven lands? Well, it's not official, but many of the dwarves don't really love us giants very much. There's a pretty bloody history between our 2 peoples, and even though we are at peace now, old grudges still remain. It also doesn't help when some smart-ass giant decides to go on a rampage in the middle of the dwarven territory just to satisfy his inferiority complex. Most of these troublemakers have been dealt with by our own warriors, but they usually get to do a lot of damage before they're caught, and it's not like the lives they've taken can just be brought back. He paused a bit to drink from his bottle. But enough about politics, he says. We should be discussing just more important matters, like, for example, what's going on between you and Rose. Is it just me, or are you 2 beginning a little closer for the past 2 days? No, don't want me to say that. I guess you could say that. Wow. I guess you could say that. Ha! I knew it, the dwarf says. I thought there might be something going on when I saw the 2 of you together yesterday, but I wasn't really sure. Well, it's nothing official, so I'd appreciate if you kept this conversation between you and me. No worries, lad, Hadric says with a grin. I know that I may look like a big mouth tight, but when it comes to sensible matters like this, I assure you that I can be the soul of discretion. Leaving Rose aside, though, I say, I know what we all want to know is going on between you and Rekka. Have you proposed to her yet? The dwarf laughs. No, you're asking the right questions, he says. And he takes another drink from his bottle. I've been meaning to do it, but I just couldn't find the right moment. I'm still thinking of an excuse to give Flower or Luna to lend me the amulet for a while so the 2 of us can have some quality time alone together. He pauses and then we both take another drink. But in all seriousness, though, Hadric says, if you hadn't been for her intervention earlier today, I'm not sure how well I would have handled myself against that Ogre captain. I have no doubts that she'd kill me without hesitation if she ever got at that amulet, but I guess I do owe her one for now. I've never really had to work with her together with others to take care of my enemies before. I usually travel and fight alone, so I'm not really used to these kinds of things. But I'll admit that being part of a group has been a nice change of pace for me. To be perfectly honest, I didn't realize... Wow. I hope this chapter ends pretty soon because it's getting pretty late. I'm getting tired and I can really see the words. Whew. I didn't really come to this tournament to win the Magium. I came here for the experience, mostly. And I'd say it's been going pretty well so far. What about you, Barry? What are your plans in case you actually win this tournament? Well, I'm going to use the Magium to become a mage. Yeah, I got that, but I mean afterwards. What do you plan to do after you become a mage? Start going adventures, fame and glory. Nay, haven't really thought about that yet, Hadric laughs. I thought it might be the case, he says. Well, there's no need to worry about it now. You'll figure it out when the time comes. I completely agree. I hear Rose's voice come from behind me. If becoming a mage was important enough for Barry to risk coming here, then he should focus all of his energy on accomplishing that goal, and worry about what the details are afterwards. He can decide what he wants to do with his powers after he gets them. Hadric grins as he looks at Rose. Should I take it that you finally changed your mind and decided to join us, he says. I've got many more bottles of ale stashed in my backpack, so there's no need for you to hold back. Actually, no, Rose says. I came here because I had a few things to say to Barry before going to sleep. Say no more, Hadric says, and he gets up from his rock. Please, take my seat. I was just about to go to my tent. He then raises the bottle again. Cheers, Barry, he says, as we both clink our bottles once more, and then we chug down the last of our ale. Okay, Barry, listen closely. Barry, listen closely. Rose says in a low voice as Hadric heads for his tent. I think you might have already realized that by now. That she pauses mid-sentence and looks at my face. Barry, are you drunk? She asks. Maybe a little, I answer. Rose giggles. Hold on, I've got some herbs in my backpack that will get you back in shape in no time, and you won't have to worry about a hangover either. I'll be right back. After she's done searching her backpack, she comes back with a fistful of red leaves and tells me that I need to chew on them for 30 seconds. Once I'm done, I realize that my dizziness is completely gone and I can think clearly again. So, as I was saying, Rose says, you might have already realized by now that me and Kate and Hadric had a little discussion before voting for you and Darren to take the first night shift. I'm sorry that we didn't invite you as well, but someone needed to stay with Darren so that he wouldn't get suspicious. Yeah, I've kind of figured that's what was wrong when I saw how well in sync you three were. I say, so what's this all about? Well, you know Luna said Flower still needs to remain in stasis till at least tomorrow evening. Yeah, I remember. The thing is that Luna hasn't slept at all since before her shift last night, and I'm starting to get a bit worried. I think she's afraid that Darren will kill her in her sleep if she sees her vulnerable. And she no longer has Flower to protect her while she's not awake. She probably only continued to travel less because she would be in much more danger alone than in a group, considering all of her powerful mages roaming around the continent right now, and the fact that she is too tired to keep suppressing her aura until tomorrow. So you want me to keep Darren busy while you and Kate try to convince her to take a nap? Yes, that's why I persuaded Hadric to say the two of his tents are unusable, so that me and Kate could sleep in the same tent as Luna. I think that we can get her to sleep if we promise Kate that we will keep an eye on Araka's amulet to see if she tries to escape again. I sigh. I know that Darren isn't always the sharpest tool in the shed, I say, but I think you're underestimating him a little bit. I would be surprised if he didn't already figure out your plan. I don't care if he did or not. I don't care if he did or did not figure out my plan, Rose says. What I want is for him to stay away from Aluna so that she can finally get a good night's sleep. I don't think that Darren would try to hurt her while she's unconscious, but keeping him as far away from her as possible is the only way Aluna could feel safe right now. I'm really sorry that I forced you into this, but I'd much rather have you with Darren than Hadric. And I can't join you because I need to stay by Luna's side, since I'm probably the only one that she somewhat trusts in our group. But if you don't feel like going through with this, I understand. I'll try to see if Hadric... No, that's not what I meant, I say. Look, here's what we're going to do. I'll make sure that Darren doesn't come near your tent during our shift, but if he gives any hint of having figured out what you're up to, I'm going to start making up lies about it. If he asks, I'll tell him the truth. Rose smiles. She shakes my hand. Deal, she says. Alright then, I say. Well, in that case, I'll off to begin my night shift. Wish me luck. Good luck, Barry, Rose says, and thank you. She then heads towards her tent, while I grab my crossbow and start walking towards the place where Darren was sitting and polishing his weapon. Took you long enough, he tells me as I sit myself on the grass beside him. Did Rose tell you to keep you busy while I try to put the Banshee to sleep? So he really did have it all figured out all along. Yeah, I say. She just finished giving me the briefing, Darren sighs as he slowly stops polishing his sword. Listen, Barry, he says, I realize I've been a bit of an ass lately, even more so than usual. And for that's worth, I'm sorry. Hearing Darren give me a heartfelt apology is as natural as seeing a fire elemental bathe in a mountain spring. However, he does not appear to be sincere about this. He does. It's okay, I tell him. Don't worry about it. No, it's not okay, Darren says. I've been stubbornly hanging on to the idea that banshees cannot possibly be trustworthy, and I was almost willing to start a fight with you because of it. Even after clear evidence had been presented to me on the contrary, I still refused to believe it, and that almost ended up costing me my life. You're talking about the time when you were hanging from a wooden beam in the caverns and Luna offered you her hand. Yes, Darren. Come to think of it, I say, you didn't start acting this way only after meeting Aluna. You've been acting strangely ever since Azarius told us about the artificial mages in the Beacon of Hope. I pause for a little bit. Now that I think about it, I continue, I don't remember you speaking a single word to Kate after you found out that she's an artificial mage and not a banshee. Darren looks at me for a few moments, as realization dawns upon him. Barry, you're right, Darren says. I really haven't spoken with Kate at all since that day. I don't know what's wrong with me. A lot of things are wrong with you, Darren, I say. You're lucky you have a friend like me to accept what you are. You know, Darren says, just because I'm in the middle of an existential crisis here doesn't mean I can't still smack you in the head with this branch for being a smart ass. Okay, I get it, I say. But even without telling me, I know you're already what's wrong with you. Don't you? Yeah, Darren says, I guess I do. He pauses a bit before he continues. Tomorrow I'll make things right, he says. I don't think I could bring myself to apologize to the Banshee, but I'll try to do my best to get along with her tomorrow. And to show her that I no longer retain any hostility towards her. As for Kate, I'll need some time to think about how I'm going to approach this. But for whatever happens, I'm not planning to let things go on like this. Thanks for hearing me out, Barry. I think I'm feeling a little bit better. It was a few hours later that Kate and Hadra came to take over our shift. I asked Kate in private how things went with Luna, and she told me that the Banshee was a bit reluctant at first, but they managed to get her to fall asleep eventually. They couldn't convince her to shut off her alarm, though, so she kept waking up every hour or so in the order to check up on Araka. But at least she got enough rest to pull her through the next day. After a good night's sleep, we all got up early in the morning, packed our tents, and resumed our journey, aiming to reach the ruins by sundown. Since we know exactly which way we were headed this time around, we could afford to keep going without stopping to look for every single one of Flower's markers, which saved us quite a few hours on our way back. Due to everything that's happened in the last few days, our group was visibly starting to become more closely knit, even though I couldn't say that we all got along perfectly. The fact of having survived through such hardships together by trusting and relying on each other seemed to have developed a certain bond between us. Even Araka is starting to act more like a member of the group. As a reward for her cooperation yesterday, her locket was left open, so every now and then she would join our conversations by adding her unique commentary, even though most of it was either somehow tied to atrocities she committed during the still winter, or a dark joke of some kind. Throughout our journey back to the ruins, Darren had tried on multiple occasions to initiate casual conversation with Luna, but his awkward attempts at trying to make up with her only managed to make her even more suspicious of his motives. Despite his boasting, however, he still didn't utter a single word to Kate by the time we reached our destination. The fox was still quite surprised when she learned that we'd returned the chalice. I don't know if she was really expecting us to pull it off. However, she kept her word and removed all of our collars upon confirmation that the artifact we brought to her was indeed the one she was looking for. Since we really didn't feel like spending any more time than necessary in the place, we waved goodbye to the fox and the leopard, and we started heading out of the forbidden forest. And we prayed that we never see either of them again for the rest of our lives. Once we put some good distance between ourselves and the edge of the forbidden forest, we decided to set up camp near a small river, in an area without many trees. Flower, who had recently woke up from her stasis, was now being filled in on the details of what happened since she was put to sleep. I'm so glad that Petal's plan worked out in the end, Flower says, as she hears the whole story. I've got a little worried when she told me she needed to put me into stasis for 2 days, but I decided to trust her judgment. Wait, did you say Petal's plan? Kate asked. Didn't you say beforehand that both you worked on this plan? Well, Flower says, feeling a little embarrassed. The truth is that Petal is the one who usually makes up all of our strategies. I just follow her lead most of the time. At first, I didn't think she would help out this time around, but since she was always making sure to keep her distance and not get involved with you guys. But then something happened that made her change her mind, and the night before we reached the fort, she wouldn't tell me what happened exactly, but all of a sudden she became much more active in planning the whole operation, and she even took care to minimize the risks for your safety. I don't know what got into her, but I'm really glad that things turned out the way they did. Rose smiles to me. I think we both know what made Aluna change her mind before they reached the ogres. It seems that our discussion in private with her during her night shift has a lot more impact than we originally thought. Yeah. After some careful consideration, I decided to keep Aluna's secret and spare her the embarrassment. Wait, so you're saying that you're not the only ones who convinced Aluna to carry out the plan? Darren asked Flower. No, like I said, she was the one who, Flower starts to say, but then gasped loudly. Did you call Petal by her real name? The girl asked, seemingly in a state of shock. Yeah, I guess, Darren says. Does that mean you're friends now? Flower asks. No. Darren and Luna both shout simultaneously. Oh my god, it's true, Flower says. You really are friends now. You should have been seen them bickering like two lovebirds during our whole trip back, Araka says. It's like they're both made for each other. Wait, your locket's open? Flower asks Araka. How come your locket's open? Petal never leaves it open. Ha, Araka says. This is a thing of the past. Due to my outstanding performance during our last mission, I have been promoted to a full-time member of the group. That means that all you need to listen to my opinions from now on. For example, I think that before we go to sleep, we should all hunt a few animals and put our heads on spikes all around our camp in order to ward off invaders. Don't push your luck on, Luna says. Oh gods, Flower says. So many things have happened while I was asleep. I can barely keep track of them anymore. Hold on, I need to write all this down. Whoops. After finishing our conversation with Flower and setting up all of our tents, we all took a little break to eat some food. Since the girl had magical energy to spare after her long nap, she offered to conjure for each of us a dish of her own choosing. I wasn't particularly hungry, so I just asked for some lemon cakes. Everyone else went all out. However, they asked for most extravagant dishes that came to their minds, like manticore ribs seasoned with a variety of spices, or griffin wings coated with honey. Everyone except Kate, that is, given that she hadn't really had the luxury of ever tasting any food other than what she's hunted herself. She simply asked for roasted duck legs, and she went to eat by herself on a log a few dozen feet away from our camp. After eating my fill of lemon cakes, I went over to Kate's side to see how she was doing. I caught her staring blankly at one of the trees in front of her, and she didn't even notice me until I placed myself right in front of her. Still thinking about Diane? I asked her. Kate looks a bit taken aback by my straightforwardness, but in the end she decided to answer me honestly. Yes, she says. She's been on my mind ever since I woke up in those ruins, but I've been trying my best not to let it show, given the situation we're in. Here, I tell her. Have some lemon cakes. I've already eaten my fill. Thanks, she says as she accepts my offer. You know, I say, after you guys fell unconscious due to Diane's attack, I managed to stay awake for a little while longer because of my higher resistance to electricity. When she hears my words intently, Kate raises her head and starts watching me intently. What? When she hears my words, Kate raises her head and starts watching me intently. I saw the Lesethai she was working with. I continue. They both want to have us killed. But your friend stood up to them. She said she'd kill them if they laid a finger on either of us. She's the reason we're alive right now. Kate laughs. And also the reason why we almost get killed by a golden fox goddess and by a fort full of ogres in the past few days, she says. I get why you're telling me this, and I'm grateful for your concern, but I already suspected that when she said what she said and did was her way of trying to look out for me. That, however, still does not excuse her behavior in the way she put us all in even greater danger than her actions. She's always been like this. She would not think twice before doing what she thought was right, but would often only result in her making things even worse than what they were before. I swear I'm going to give her one hell of a beating when we see her again. Does that mean that you're still going to participate in the tournament? Yes, She pauses. I no longer have any leads on Diane's whereabouts, Kate says. And if the organizers eventually announce some objectives, I'll have to at least try to complete their tasks to avoid getting disqualified for lack of participation. Until then, I was thinking of sticking around with you guys. That's if to say... She paused again. If you'll have me, she continues. Of course we'll have you, Kate, I say. I know that Darren's been acting a little strange lately, but trust me when I say I pause mid-sentence because I see that Darren's now heading towards us with a very uncomfortable look on his face. Speaking of the devil, I tell Kate in a low voice. Listen, Darren says, looking at Kate when he gets closer, there's something I've been meaning to tell you for a while, but I couldn't really find the right moment. Oh God, you're not going to propose to me, are you? Kate says. Damn it, no, Darren says, and then he immediately tries to regain his composure. That's not what I meant. It's just that lately I haven't talked to you. Actually, I haven't even spoken a word to you for days. Really? Kate says, looking genuinely surprised. I never noticed. Darren looks as he's about to lose his cool again, but then he manages to regain his emotions. I stopped talking to you right after Azarius told us that you were an artificial mage, he says. I was just so convinced that you were a banshee from the very beginning, and after what I heard, he says, he pauses. I was wrong. He says after a while, deciding not to continue his previous sentence. Even if on the surface I was acting like your friend, in reality I never let my guard down around you, and I was expecting you to betray us and turn into a monster at any moment. And to make matters worse, after learning the truth, instead of trying to make amends, I spent my time sulking like some 4-year-old who dropped his candy bar in a sewer. I realized that it's way beyond late now, but I couldn't just let things go on forever. The reason why I came here for you tonight is that I wanted to apologize. It looked like it took every ounce of strength to utter that last word. I don't think I've seen him this tense even when we were battling the Hydra in the Lesthai ruins. I'm sorry. What was that? Kate says. You'll have to repeat that last word again, because I could barely hear it. Damn it, woman, Darren says. You know very well what I said. Don't make me repeat it now. Now, do you accept my apology? Immediately after Darren finishes his sentence, Kate starts to laugh. But her laughter is sounding much more like natural than ever before. When he first heard her, Darren looked as if he was about to blow his fuse again, but then he realized that it was no hint of malice in Kate's laughter, so he eventually calmed down. I'm sorry, Kate, as she struggled to contain her laughter. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to mock you. It's just that I didn't think that this would be the kind of thing that could trouble you so much. Of course I accept your apology. If I was being honest when I said that I never noticed you ignore me all this time. The two of us never really talked all that much, so none of this seems strange to me, but I really appreciate you coming to me like this. Thank you. This made me feel a lot better. She smiles. I'm not sure what this is all about when I hear Hadrick's voice come from behind Darren, but I'm willing to bet this would be the best moment to finally hold that victory celebration. He then places 5 bottles of dwarven ale on the ground and grins at us. I suppose so, Kate says, smiling. Hold on, Darren says. Our collars might have been removed, but we're all still in dangerous territory. What if we get attacked by some mages or monsters after we have a little party? Who's going to defend us from our enemies if we're all plastered? There's no need to worry about that, Rose says, as she approaches us, holding a small pouch in her left hand. These leaves I have in my bag are a natural remedy for drunken stupors. You just need to chew on them for a half a minute, and all the dizziness will be gone in a flash, without even having to worry about hangovers afterwards. Perfect, the dwarf says. There's no need for us to hold back. I'll go get some more bottles. Ooh, is that dwarven ale? Flower says, as she sees 5 bottles laying on the ground. I've always wanted to try dwarven ale. No ale for you, young lady, Hadrick says. Little kids should not be drinking alcoholic beverages of any kind. It's not good for you. But I'm not a little kid, Flower says. I'm 30 years old. You may be 30 years old, but your alcoholic tolerance is that of a 9-year-old. Iluna says. You can barely even stand on your feet after drinking a glass of wine. Petal, you're not helping, Flower says. As the rest of us start to laugh, you're not helping at all. After the long overdue celebration was finally over, we each went to sleep in our respective tents, except for Hadrick and Darren, who took the first shift. For those few hours while we were dragged together, it felt hard to believe that we'd been risking our lives fighting ogres just one day prior. It almost felt like it was back at home, spending a night out in the tavern with some friends, far away from all the madness of this tournament. It was nice to have a night like this for a change, and who knows, maybe the worst is all behind us. And every night from now on will be like this as well. A man is allowed to dream, right? With these final thoughts, I put my head on the pillow. I woke next morning feeling completely refreshed. This time around I got the lucky draw. I didn't need to take any shifts, which was nice, a nice change of pace from all the sleepless nights I've been having lately. Since we didn't have a fixed time limit anymore, we all decided to sleep in today. so it was already 10 o'clock in the morning by the time I got out of my tent. Taking a look around the camp, it seemed like everyone else had already gotten up for some time, and they were just about to finish their breakfast. "He's awake at last," Darren says as he sees me get out of my tent. "Did you enjoy your 10 hours of uninterrupted sleep, Barry? It's too bad you missed breakfast, though." Flower really did outdo herself this time. 2. Her food-making skills are simply divine. But don't worry, I'm sure we can still scrounge up some cold leftovers for you to eat if you're really hungry. "That's mighty generous of you." "Well, you know me," Darren says, "always looking out for my fellow man." The fact that this is the universal credo of all white mages is what makes it so ironic. I tell him as I take some dry meat and an apple out of my backpack and start to eat. "Barry, why didn't you just tell me you woke up?" Flower calls out to me, disappointed, as she sees me finishing my meal. I was waiting for you before making breakfast so it wasn't getting cold." "Yeah, well, Darren forgot to mention that you were still taking orders," I say. "Don't sweat it. It wasn't really hungry that anyway." "Aw, but I was going to surprise you with a traditional dish from your homeland," Flower says. "Traditional?" I ask. "Yes, I was going to make quail eggs and ham with bagleberry cheese. That's less of a traditional dish from the Western continent and more of a select meal eaten only by a handful of nobles on our continent. The rest of us actually usually just eat whatever we have lying around the pantry for breakfast." "Huh," Flower says. "Well, the more you know." After everyone's finished eating, we decide to hold a meeting and establish what our plans were. Now that we're finally free of our collars, the 3 of us have already promised Rose that we'd escort her safely to her hometown, Darren says, as he points towards me and Kate. "So that's where we're headed right now. Hadric, Flower, you have no obligations to keep traveling with us. We can part ways here if you want. Actually, traveling with this group has provided me with the most fun I've had in years," Hadric says. "The objectives of the tournament still haven't been announced, so I don't really have anything specific to do until then. If it's all the same to you, I'd rather tag along." "How about you, Flower?" Kate says. "Well," Flower says, looking a bit hesitant, "I wouldn't want to be a bother to anyone." "Wait, are you kidding me?" Hadric says. "You can spit fire, jump on walls, and make food out of nothing. Who would be crazy enough not to want you in their group? Nobody here would ever turn you away after how much you've helped us," Rose says. "And don't you even for a second think that you would ever be a bother to us. The question here is what you would want to do. Would you like to keep traveling with us?" "Yes," Flower says, beaming. "I would love to." "How long is this chapter? Oh my god." "And Luna," Kate says, "how does she feel about all this?" All of her eyes are fixed upon the girl, as her own eyes turn bright blue, and Luna starts to look around nervously. "I guess it wouldn't hurt us too much to accompany you for a while longer," she says. "It's settled then," Darren says. "Pack your bags. We're leaving in half an hour." "Now, hold on there," Rex says. "Is nobody going to ask me how I feel about all this? What if I told you that I'm deeply unsatisfied with this group's abysmal kill per hour ratio, and I'd only consider continuing our collaboration if you promise to work on improving it? Huh? What then?" We all stare at Araka's amulet for a few seconds, until Hadric decides to break the silence. "Alright then," he says. "It's time for us to start dismantling our tents. Meet you all back here in 30 minutes. "Hey," Araka says, as we all start heading back towards our tents. "Hey, don't you dare ignore me. Do you hear me? Come back here, I'm not done complaining yet." It took me a while, but after I got done with my tent and my backpack, I headed back towards our meeting spot, where everyone except Kate seemed to have already arrived. As I got closer, I saw that Flower was currently spinning Araka's amulet by the chain with a displeased expression on her face. "This chain is starting to get old," she says. "We'll have to get a new one until the next time we're in the city." "That's great," Araka shouts. "Now, if you're done testing the chain's durability, maybe you could stop with the spinning." "All right, sorry," Flower says, as she grabs the amulet and puts it back in her pocket. "I forgot you had motion sickness." "Wait, seriously?" Hadric says with a laugh. "The almighty invincible Banshee can't handle a little spinning?" "It's because she's trapped in the amulet," Luna says. "It's messing with her senses. She didn't have any problems like this when she was possessing animal bodies." "Oh, good," Kate's here, Darren says, as he sees Kate approaching. "I guess we're good to go, then?" Where are we headed exactly?" Hadric says. "The city of Thilius," Rose says. "It's a small harbor town near the southern coast. It's lovely this time of year." key. Oh my goodness. Okay, I'm here, Kate says as she joins the rest of us. Let's get going. Wait, Flower says. I just remembered something. The plates. I forgot to wash the plates. Who cares about the plates, Darren asks. Can't you just conjure new ones out of nowhere like you do with the food? Yeah, but that would be a waste to just leave them here, Flower says. They sell for a pretty good price on the market. This won't take long, I promise. I'll just pick them up quick and wash them in the river. I'll be right back. You know, I've always wondered about something, Hadrick tells Darren, as Flower rushes past him. If they call you white mages, then shouldn't necromancers be called black mages, you know, to keep them going? Actually, that's a common misconception, Darren says. This has nothing to do with warriors of the light fighting the forces of darkness. The only reason why white mages are called like that is because of the bright light that it appears when they cast most of their spells. It's not really an official name, but I guess it's kind of stuck. Some white mages are with a stick up their arse sometimes even get offended when they're called that, and Darren stopped talking because the familiar figure had just appeared out of thin air in front of him. A boy with his eyes closed, his hands in his pocket, and a polite smile on his face. Greetings, friends, Eden says. I come bearing news. Eden, Darren says with a frown. Now, Eden says. There's no need to be so hostile. I only came to help. Wait, how did you find us? I ask him. By tracing your auras, of course, Eden says. I just finished up my business with the other side of the island, and I thought I'd pop by to visit. How could you possibly have identified us just by our auras from that far away, I say. Our auras are much more complex than you think, Barry, Eden says. Most people only use them to learn a person's magical prowess, and maybe to understand their basic emotional state, but a person's auras is capable of showing us much more than that. With enough With enough practice, you can see that each person's aura is unique, and it can be used to track them down from a great distance. If your magical sense is sharp enough, mine happens to cover the whole island of Varathia. You mean to say you can find out any person's whereabouts at any given time, I say? Yes, but like I said, auras can be used for many other things, Eden says. For example, if you study a person's aura fluctuations carefully enough, you can tell if they're lying or not. Besides that, you can also find out their age, their race, their mental state. If you tamper with a person's auras long enough, you can even stop them from aging. Speaking of auras, Barry, I happened to see your auras in very, very close proximity to Lesethai a few days ago. Did you remember giving me my message? Crap, he's talking about the two Lesethai that were with Diane. His stupid message was the last thing on my mind when I was supposed to tell him. I was unconscious. I'm sorry, I was barely even able to talk at that point. I had just been electrocuted. This is true, Eden says. I could tell even from far away that you were barely able to hold on to your senses. Yes, exactly, I say. That's why I couldn't. However, Eden interrupts me. If delivering my message had been your first priority, you would have surely been able to find resources necessary to fulfill your task. Wait, listen, I say. We can find other Lesethai. We can still deliver the message, Barry, Eden says. I'm starting to get the impression that you're not taking me very seriously. What are you talking about, I say. Of course I take you seriously. This will not do, Eden says. How am I supposed to get my point across if you're not taking me seriously? Listen, I say. I get why you may be thinking this, but trust me when I say that. I know, Eden says with a smile all of a sudden. I should kill one of your friends. That should make you take me more seriously. What did you just say? I ask him. All of a sudden, I hear Rose starting to grasp for air loudly. Rose, Darren says, what's happening? Rose tries to say something, but she doesn't manage to get enough air in her lungs to articulate her words properly. You shouldn't force yourself to speak, Rose, Eden says. After all, your airways in your lungs are currently slowly closing themselves in. You should focus all your efforts on breathing as much air as possible. You bastard, Darren shouts as he pulls out his sword. I'm going to kill. Before he gets to finish his sentence, Darren falls to the ground, completely paralyzed. And the same thing happens to everyone else except me and Rose, immediately afterwards. Your friends can't help it this time, Barry, Eden says to me. What are you going to do? A feeling of panic overwhelms me all of a sudden. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. We're finally rid of the callers, and we're rid of them. Everything was going to be okay. Why did you have to come back? Why? Time is running out, Barry. Eden says, your friends are at the end of the rope. How are you going to stop me? How am I going to stop him? I still have no idea how he powered up my stat device when I fought the dragon, and I don't know any of his weaknesses. Does he even have a weakness? Are there any words that can get me out of this like last time? What would make him let her go? What would convince him to let this slide? What am I supposed to do? All of a sudden, there's a loud noise of plates shattering to our right, and Rose finally managed to take a deep, long breath. As Eden and me both turned to identify the source of sound. Flower is standing there, with an expression of pure shock on her face, and with a dozen shattered plates lying at her feet. Well, if it isn't Luna of the Sacred Woods Massacre, Eden says, smiling. It's been 20 years, I believe. How have you been? Flower's expression quickly turns into pure rage, and her eyes turn bright red, and her aura starts to fluctuate violently. You, she shouts as she points to Eden. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. She then jumps towards Eden and starts throwing a flurry of fireballs at him, as the Stillwater casually dodges each one of them without even using any magic. Flower then shoots a beam of fire that engulfs Eden completely, but it simply passes him by and leaves him unharmed. You killed them, Flower says. You killed them all. Bring them back, do you hear me? Bring them back. She then conjures a dragon made entirely of fire that flies towards Eden and starts to attack him with its claws. Flower also joins the battle up close, as she tries to punch the Stillwater with her flaming fists. Luna, Eden says, as he parries the girl's strikes with one hand and the dragon's with the other. Do you really think you can put a stop to this? I'm kind of starting to lose my patience. For a second, the girl's eyes turn bright blue. I think I can clearly see her fear in them. The next moment, Flower stopped moving, and she looked as if she was being held against her will by an invisible force. Let me go, Petal, the girl says, as tears start to form in her eyes, while she struggles to break free. Let me go. I have to kill him. I have to. After trying in vain to free herself for a few more seconds, Flower then turns towards us. It's him, she tells us. Don't you see? He's the one. He's the one who destroyed the city of Olmar. To be continued. What? What do you mean to be continued? Okay. Anyway, I am going to end the episode there. I'm not sure what I did wrong, but I will go through again to try and finish it off. I'll record it to see if there's anything that's actually worth it, but yeah. I'm not restarting the game for sure, and I'm not loading the friggin' game. I'm going to restart from last checkpoint. I just hope that I don't have to read that all over again. Anyway, that was a very interesting chapter. That was chapter 10, but actually it's not even over yet, sorry. But thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.